How's the conference going for everybody? All right, okay, and you know that the branded customer service requires a research-driven approach session, and I have to tell you, this is a 75-minute presentation that I have worked and worked and worked to cut down to my 15 minutes. So I'll be interested in any and all feedback you have at the end about how I succeeded in terms of cutting this topic down. It's a really important topic, and I think it fits in perfectly with today's themes. I believe the theme is the future. I think the customer service really is sort of one of the a future opportunity. So 2014 moving into 2021, I think we'll hear more and more about customer service, in part because it's the research about how much customer service can impact the bottom line is really dripping into the executive office, and in part because the reality is that so many companies have really hit the wall in terms of their growth opportunities. They've already acquired companies, they've already shaved their price points, and so they're really looking for the next opportunity, and that is customer service. So it's the future. I also understand that I'm in the data track, and my theory is that when used correctly, data will improve customer service. My observation is that many companies really miss the boat when it comes to customer service, and the customers are in large sort of kind of like, well, customer service is okay, or it's just not that good. For instance, how many of you, show of hands, have ever had a customer service interaction where you were just kind of like, head scratcher, what are they thinking? Anybody ever had that? Okay. Have you ever had a customer service interaction that was just made you mad? Has anybody ever had that? Okay. These are not things that are good for the bottom line. On the company side, where they're missing the boat is when you're in front of a customer, it's such a great opportunity to impart education, maybe to sell more, and of course, I would say to brand, to show, to demonstrate what makes your company unique, which I would say is sort of the definition of branding, is that you're in sync with your advertised mission and that you're in some way showing what makes your company stand out. So my observation is that companies are missing the boat with customer service, and my thesis is that the reason they're missing the boat, the reason customer service isn't optimized, is that it's really lacked a research driver. And the reason this is that customer service is in large, as an operation, in large it's about putting out fires. In large, customer service is an HR activity. It's about keeping people in their seats, or it's about keeping people in the store on the front line. It's really not about getting into the granular fine point details of interactions. It really can't. And because it doesn't have that granular focus on the details of interactions, it creates a sense of interactions as sort of black and white. It squashes their complexity. It creates a kind of flatness around interactions, and that's what results in you guys having an experience of like, what? What are they talking about? What's wrong with them? Okay, so my thesis is it needs research. The reason research hasn't been there, because you always have to kind of test your thesis to make sure it makes sense. Is there a reason why this would be? And yes, there's a reason it would be. Customer service has not been historically focused and doesn't really have the bandwidth to focus on the details. So with that, back. Okay, who's this for? It's for marketing professionals who are looking to extend their brand into new channels. It's for researchers like you guys who are looking to apply your methods across other silos. Let me make sure I got that. Okay. Does customer service matter? I think it's important to quantify this here. Gallup has done a lot. Thank you, Gallup. If Gallup is here, thank you. They've done a lot of work on customer service and customer engagement, both in contact centers and in store. And they've come up with some absolutely fascinating statistics. And all of them really prove that the marketplace works. The market works. Customers go back to and reward companies that create engaging experiences, and they leave companies that don't provide those kinds of experiences. So customers who are just like, oh, you're okay, you satisfied me, they spend about 8% more per year. But those who find you absolutely emotionally engaging, what we call branded, differentiated, they spend a whopping 67% more with you year over year. So this is a huge opportunity. Let's look at what customer service is. It's complex. Again, lots of fine-grained detail there. And let me talk a little bit about that. There are different customers. There's the shy customer, assertive customer, cost-conscious customer. It varies by touch point. So when you're buying a product is very different than when you're returning a product. It's mostly subconscious. It's mostly subconscious. So if it's an email interaction, there are things about the white space to text formatting. The customer isn't thinking about it. It doesn't mean it's not affecting their behavior. They're not your analysts. They're just responding and behaving in kind. And of course, customer experiences, both in time and longitudinally, are always changing. They're always shifting. So it's complex. To master that complexity, it requires the research approach. That's your insight for today. Without research, it really is all the same. It's a monoculture. I come from Portland, Oregon, and we talk a lot about like mono farming is bad. You want a heterogeneous approach to farming. Mono approach to customer service is bad. You want an approach that encompasses variables, variation, and really accounts for that. So the innovation is a research process or a group of processes that really bring customer service to life. That's the innovation. So I'm going to walk you through this, and then I'm going to show you where Amazon really does not have research intelligence in place, and I think it's fascinating. But let's start with the process, so I'm sure you're walking out of this room with a takeaway. The process is this. If you want to apply research to customer service, you start with statistically valid samples. Customer service is not used to this. Typically, what they do is they record everything, and then they give feedback to a few associates a few times a month. Maybe they're capturing 5 interactions per associate. That's not really to capture the lived experience. The lived experience, you know, as researchers, is about 380 captures per population or per channel. You need that kind of volume to really have some kind of mapping with the lived experience. So you start with statistically valid samples. Then you need to code each interaction by persona and situation. Let me show you what I mean. Again, customer experience, it's comprised of many different types of customers and different types of situations. That's prospect questions, prospect returns, legal complaints, and so forth. Here's a case study, B2B financial services company. Their goal is to showcase their brand, which is about being the leader. They want to showcase themselves as the leader in what they call geared ETFs, geared exchange traded funds. And it's really important for them to show their leadership by educating through customer service. So when we went in and we put coding on 380 interactions, we found there were a number of different personas at work. Here's 4 of them. There's the unfamiliar, irate registered investment advisor. Maybe he's losing a great deal of, or his client has just lost $200,000. He needs to know what's going on with the fund. Then there's the unfamiliar rushed RIA. Remember, this is in the middle of the trade day, so there are going to be registered investment advisors who need an answer now. There are registered investment advisors who maybe, what's their situation? They need work with client paperwork, something about the documentation, the executor of the estate, that kind of thing. And then there's these high net worth individuals who really need to understand and have conversations about what gearing means and so forth. So these are just 4 examples out of the range of personas. And what I mean by coding is coming up with a way to categorize what's their type, what's the emotional state they're in, and what are their needs. So you're going through these interactions and tagging who is this person who's calling in, who's having the interaction. And then there's the situation side, where they need to add an additional executor, or they need to understand this, again, this idea of gearing, and they want to have this long chat. So here, we're listing out all the possible situations, these transactions. A trade is different than an estimate. It's very different from these client inquiries. And what it's about is creating the canvas where you're mapping situations with personas to create what we call schema. So our client came to us and said, we have 5 different types of calls. And we came back to them and said, well, actually, you need 6 different sets of scoring criteria because you have 3 major types of calls. Within that, you have 6 categories of calls, and within that, you have 26 different types of calls. And oh, by the way, that you don't have one customer, you have many customers, and all that has to be mapped appropriately with that. By creating the schema, you then get to set up expectations and scoring rules so that you're able to monitor and really measure what's going on in the customer service environment. Now, without research intelligence, you get this. I contacted Amazon. My Kindle Fire wasn't working quite right. I think it wasn't holding the charge. We talked about solutions. Maybe I'd buy a new Kindle, the HD Kindle. And I got an email. It was an okay conversation, kind of not so memorable. Here's the email that I got back. Let's start at the bottom of it. It says, Earth's most customer-centric company. Does somebody want to tell me what that means? Earth's most customer-centric company. Somebody, Earth. What? Whole world. Right, inclusion. Right? Wouldn't it be about the idea of inclusion? What about this that's Earth, customer-centric? What would that mean? What's customer-centric? Somebody. Focus on, yeah, that relationships are super important to them. So presumably this Earth's most customer-centric company, the slogan has something to do with what they're trying to do as a company. Okay, so here's the response that I got. Again, I was just talking to them about an upgrade or what to do. It's not holding the charge. I get, hello, Martha. Thank you for taking the time to talk to Theo from Amazon Kindle. I just wanted to take a moment to let you know how much we appreciate your business. You are important to us, and we want you to be assured, blah, 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 that you're working with a quality organization. If there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. Any feedback is appreciated. It's very, very nice talking to you today. If you'd like, you can visit this page for da-da-da. Have a blessed day. Best regards, FIOM. I did, by the way, send this to Jeff Bezos, and I did not get a response. Okay, so let's analyze this as interaction analysts. Relative to the brand, most customer-centric company, I think they start off on a great note. They personalize. Hello, Martha. They used my name. That's terrific. But this switch in pronoun from third person to first person, taking the time to talk to Theo, I just wanted to, it really says efficiency. In other words, this cut and paste of language trumps anything about relationships. They didn't mention the original topic of the conversation, replacing a Kindle. So it's to communicate. It's not about a relationship. It's about the act of communication is enough. It's an act. It's not an interaction. Oh, and a typo? Really? I mean, it's already coming out of cut and paste. Clearly, this is a cut and paste job. And they have a typo in their cut and paste? It's almost, and they're a quality organization. I think there's some irony there. Okay, now let's dwell on this blessed day. I think it's off-putting. I think it's an exclusionary statement, It's an exclusionary to send off to some people who are not religious. Have a blessed day, I think, especially with that uppercase B, would seem to indicate, I don't even know what it communicates, but to me this would be an email from a fly-by-night church supplies company. I don't know. The yes, no, did I solve your problem, disallows spectrum. Spectrum is a very modern way of thinking, as in the last 100 years way of thinking, that everything's on a spectrum. So really, I would advocate for, it wasn't a problem to begin with, it was a conversation, but something that's more inclusive of the entire spectrum, yes, no, other, maybe. Anyway, they never synced on any level with this scenario, and Amazon wasted a brand opportunity. I would say it's because they didn't have research intelligence in place. They have tremendous logistics in place. No one is arguing with that. They are tremendously, profoundly good at logistics, and it saves them from events like this. I didn't upgrade my Kindle, so they lost $200. So if I spend $1,000 a year, well, that's a difference of 20%. And again, they're saved by that because they're outstanding logistics, but clearly they're not putting this intelligence and figuring out all of their different types of personas, all of their different types of situations, and coming up with appropriate responses. I'm going to give you another example. Here's Young and Sexy. The core of that is it's about being graphic. That's enticing. It's sensory. It's about being casual, playful, spirited, flirty. I mean, that's the meaning of sex, right? And it's exclusive. It's for the popular kids. Okay, that's Young and Sexy. And here's a teen, a seeks advice, cool teen. Okay, so very specific. I'm looking for Hillern, but the site says it's sold out. I think you had it last week. What's going on? I love your stuff, especially the Hillern. Without research intelligence, you get this. Hey, it looks like that product is sold out for the season and we won't be getting any more in. We're sorry for any inconvenience this may have caused. Off-brand. There is nothing sexy or flirty or fun or young about that. You're sorry for any inconvenience. That would be how Bank of America talks to me. And I would say a kind of Bank of America brand, and that's fine. But it's certainly not cool, hot, sexy, young, flirty. Okay, with research intelligence, they get this. First of all, they have a map of scenarios, and they have the email teen is very different from the email grandma. And the response now is, hey, Alexandra, thanks for asking about the Hillern. It's been extremely popular. Our online store is completely sold out. We won't be getting any more back in. Inventory in our stores changes daily. Your best bet would be to stop by the nearest in person to check for that fleece. Okay, so we're using words like popular, we're using like fun kind of words. We're answering, it's basically the same answer, but now we're really syncing up with the fashion part of it to look for that fleece. If you like the Hillern, you should definitely check out our Maggie. We love it for its ribbed hem and cuffs, classic fit. Again, this is very much the language of fashion and fun. You can order it, blah, blah, blah. Vintage, by the way. It's great to hear from an awesome teen speak company, blah, 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 shopper like you to keep up with the latest trends. So this is fast moving, it's fun, it's fashion, it's graphic. We see what it is. We always say if you don't measure it, you don't know it. What I advocate is that you put all of this together, you share an interaction brand score, that's very important, and within that you need to then segment that by persona, by types, by subtypes, by variance, by the 4 dimensions of customer service, which are timing, style cues, information cues, and connection cues. And then you need to dissect that further by the elements that comprise those key dimensions. So that's what I have for you. Interaction metrics, we do research-driven customer experience audits. We're known for providing scores. And our mantra is know the customer experience, command the changes that matter, so that you don't have an Amazon situation. So with that, I would love to talk about anything customer service or anything about the nuances behind customer experience scores.
Good. Do we have any questions? Martha, it just so happens I have a question.
Okay.
Is anybody using this?
Oh, lots of people are. So
Tell us.
Yeah. Okay. So the companies that use this kind of, it would be kind of sad if I were talking about something that no one uses. Yeah. Okay. So the kinds of companies that use this technique are what we call serious about the customer experience. And what I mean by serious about the customer experience is essentially three things. They're looking for actionable data. They're looking for really objective data. They're looking for nuanced data. So this is beyond the, would you recommend us to a friend or a colleague, one input, one output? That's not showing you, that's kind of, did we solve your problem, yes or no, blah, blah, blah. That's, it's where it's companies that are really looking for packing their scores with lots of information so they can find out how to improve. Was the question, why are so many leading off with hey? Okay, I think it's sort of one of those, I think it's just, companies have gotten into the habit of not really thinking about persona. I think, hey, Martha is great if I'm 19 years old or maybe 26 years old and I'm buying something that's like $100 or something like that. I think it's really inappropriate if I'm doing a bank transaction, but I think there's so much cut and paste. I think cut and paste is done incorrectly. It ruins relationships rather than builds relationships. It's where you're getting that low end on that Gallup spectrum where you're getting the, they're either leaving you or just spending about the same amount. You're not creating a powerful interaction tie. So it's the reliance on cut and paste, and it's kind of like, let's be hip, but that doesn't necessarily apply to all companies. What other questions might you have about how technology fits in with customer service or any other aspects of branding?
Yep.
I'm just curious how it's implemented on the back end. Is it through systems and automated tools with CRM, okay. Whatever.
Right.
That they do in scoring and whatnot. Well, how much of it is you go back and say, we need people think more?
Right. Right. Yeah, so I think CRM is great and it's really important and it can take a first pass. I hope that wasn't me. It's got to be those guys back there. Anyway, maybe I'm in a hot zone here. I think CRM is, or maybe there's somebody who works for a CRM company. But in any event, so CRM can be great, but it's not the way to code the data. So it spits out a list of reasons why companies are in contact, but it's probably not nuanced enough. I hate to say it, but this kind of thing really requires research intelligence. In other words, researchers hand coding, this is the persona, this is the situation, these are the scenarios. So in other words, actually reading the emails, the chats, observing, listening to the phone calls, but the positive side of that, even though that's hundreds of hours, the positive side of that is while the researchers are doing that coding, they're probably coming up with, and this would have been a better response. This is what the customer really needed. So you could say, well, it takes a lot of time, but on the other hand, it's kind of positive, yeah?
Okay, we're going to have to, hey, excuse me, we're going to have to cut it there for time. I want to thank all my speakers.
Oh, thanks.
They're all around, so feel free to keep on asking her questions, just not while she's standing up there. And thank you all for taking the time to be here.
Hey, yeah, thank you.